My message is you only have the rights others allow you to have. That means we have to continually fight to maintain our rights. I've been a farmer for 30 years in South Australia and in Queensland. I've been in dairy, beef, wool, fat lambs, ostriches, goats, been a roo shooter, been a shearer, irrigator and in recent times a political stirrer. I'm a runner-up in the 1999 Queensland Landcare Research Awards and a Centenary Medal recipient for services for conservation and the environment. I spent 5 years working towards getting a rural community TV channel, only to be stopped at the last hurdle. So I've been having a go trying to get these stories out and trying to get some action. I'm a co-founder of the No Carbon Tax Climate Skeptics political party. We're a political party, an action group and a lobby group. If you don't know what sort of things we do, we organise the Lord Monkton Australian Tour and we run candidates in the Senate, and I was one of those. Thousands of farming families have worked for years to own their own properties, only to have environmental laws introduced to steal it from them, as in Kate's case, or have most of their rights removed to run it. Sometimes it's the whole property. In my case, it was part of my Queensland property. I come from an innovative farming and fishing family. My great-great-great-great-grandfather grew the first wheat in South Australia on what is now Henley Beach Road. In 1970, my father's dairy farm in Mount Gambier produced 200,000 litres of milk. The same acres in 2004, I produced 6 times that amount, 1,200,000 litres. We made the soil more fertile, we grazed the grasses better, balanced the diets of the cows better, irrigated the pastures and more. Like many farmers, I love working the land and I love helping it produce lots of food and fibre. Some people think we farmers cannot feed a planet of 7 billion people. Well, that's rubbish. To demonstrate this, Australia produces half its farm production on just 1% of our land mass. That's right, almost 50% of our production comes from the irrigated 1% of our country. And on top of that, 6 times the amount of water that flows down the Murray-Darling goes out to sea in northern Queensland each year. That's right, there's heaps more water for us for further irrigation development if we want to. Up to recently, we've produced enough food for 70 million people. We're exporting 70% of what we produced. We could triple that effort easily. That's without better recycling, desalination and water recovery from other sources. We have amazing potential, but we've been brainwashed and over-regulated against our best interests. The green religion says we cannot produce more food because we'll hurt the planet. Well, that's garbage. I know from experience we can improve the planet as well as feed everybody. The green religion is a bunch of lies. With the right price incentives, secure property rights and freedom to use the rainwater and the land we have in Australia, we could be much more productive, prosperous. But back to my story. On my Queensland property in 1999, I developed a way to run water out of small creeks across thousands of acres of scrub country. I was pushing scrub timber into rows and bulldozing dirt along the contour bank through the scrub. In effect, I made that land that normally had 30% of its rainfall soak into the soil become land that had 150% of the rainfall of that area infiltrate the soil. In other words, I developed it from an effective 5-inch rainfall to 25-inch rainfall land. If you Google my name on YouTube, you can see 3 videos on the subject. On the country I did this, the carrying capacity of the land increased an average 4-fold. Native grasses, not seen for many years, returned and eroded gullies began healing. It was a win for the environment and productivity. But only months after being a Landcare Award finalist for this work, the Queensland Labor Beatty government and the federal Liberal government decided to stop vegetation clearing in Queensland to allow Australia to meet its Kyoto target. Overnight, the resource management legislation came in and everything I was doing to reduce erosion and to spread water was impacted. And every land management tool I was using became illegal in some way. A third of my property was deemed of concern or endangered. No actual species were endangered, just the combination of soil and native vegetation was deemed endangered. There are over 1,000 of these combinations of soil and vegetation in Queensland, so it's just another way of locking up the land to make it a national park without the government paying for it. So on a third of my property I couldn't put up new fences, I couldn't use fire to regenerate the grasses, I couldn't push over trees, I couldn't make contours through the scrub, and I couldn't even drive over a small bush on my motorbike while mustering because if it was destroyed I could be fined $125,000. The rights I previously had were stolen without consultation. On top of this, I still had to maintain the land and pay rates on it without being able to develop it. There were stocking rate limits and new dams needed licences, very similar to what's now attempting to happen here in South Australia. You might ask if we suspected this was going to occur, and yes we did. Because we were concerned, the local Department of Natural Resources boss came to our land care meeting and assured us it wasn't going to happen ever. Then a month after his reassurance, it came in. Okay, he was lied to by his minister, but he was used to stop us getting more aggressive. The same can be said of the Ag Force group, which is a lobby group, farmers lobby group, and it was used, basically manipulated into agreeing with the government to bring legislation in. Ag Force leaders were like bureaucrats with no conviction about rights or truth. They would just say to us, look, you can't beat the Greens or the Greenie myths or the fads or the things that are coming in, so just cut the best deal you can. Negotiate a few rights away each time and hope that the Greens don't come back for another bite. Well, if you do that, as a few speakers have said, eventually you'll have nothing left. I helped mobilise 2 property rights marches in Queensland, one in Winton and one in Roma, and it slowed the progress of the Greens for a couple of years. I then returned to South Australia to farm. I bought land beside Lake George in the southeast and it became involved in a property rights issue there. I had rights right up to the edge of Lake George. Instead of the South Australian government negotiating to buy what they wanted, they forced me to give them the land. And did this by not allowing me to sell the property without the 50 acres on the edge of the lake being given away. I could have gone to court to fight it, but it just wasn't worth it. I've now stopped being a farmer and I've started a political party to try and reverse these injustices. In the Northern Territory, Henbury Station has been bought with 2/3 government money to get rid of its thousands of cattle so it can receive carbon credits. It's a new green industry swapping food production for paper money. It will be a lemon and of course we'll all lose. In New South Wales, I have friends who have to plough their land every few years, to be able to maintain their crop acreage that they have, because if cropland is not ploughed every 7 years, I think it is, they lose that right. Another New South Wales friend of a friend has a spring on the land. They now are being charged for the water from it. It's gone from water being theirs to the water being the government's. Now that's theft. If they think that they'll not lose more rights, they're naive. All of us will lose our land, water, vegetation and stock management rights if nothing changes. The Green movement is not about improving the land, it's about controlling resources. My Queensland Land Care group tried to educate Greens. We even got a leading Green activist to come out to see some land care work. We soon realised she wasn't genuine about the environment because she refused to get out of the car to even look at how we were stopping gully erosion on one occasion. The major political parties know they are removing our rights. They know, and they don't want to pay you compensation either. I've talked to state premiers, ministers and bureaucrats for hours and hours on these exact issues. They know exactly what they're doing. It's all about short-term plans like staying in power to keep getting Green to vote and having lots of money, our money, to spend on the next lot of election promises. They do not care if we have Australian farmers or Australian industries. There are Labor, Liberals and National Party politicians who will dance to the Green tune of shutting down fishing or farming or forestry in the name of supposedly saving the environment, provided it keeps them on taxpayer payroll. There are some good ones in the Liberal Party and National Party though, I will say as well. When I question them hard, many believe in the inevitability of a centralised one world government, and this is where the carbon tax comes in. The Greens love the carbon tax because it's the first step towards a world government. If we don't stop the carbon tax, in a few years' time it will mean Australians will be subject to international carbon emission rules, including a police force controlled from overseas. Our government will allow UN carbon cops to enter your home and your business and look at your books. They'll be able to fine you thousands of dollars or impose other inconveniences on you in the name of the environment. If you speak out publicly or ask honest questions, you'll be called names to cow you into submission. So if you thought our 3 tiers of local, state and federal government was a problem, wait until you have an international, unelected, green-coloured communistic government have its way with you. I trust you see how we have to keep all our property rights to maintain a fair and free society. Ladies and gentlemen, can you tell me this? Do you want to lose more property rights? No, I don't want to either. Are you prepared to join others and fight to keep your rights? Yes. Too right. Okay, my last subject is about the emotional toll of fighting this oppression, and we've got to get some action here too. In the last 12 years, I estimate over 500 farming families Australia-wide, have lost someone to suicide from the pressure of different environmental laws. If I get elected to the Senate, I'll fight for an inquiry into the suicides related to these the unjust environmental laws, so we can establish for sure how many lives we have lost and have it on public record that it actually happened. Remember, Australia lost less than 500 soldiers in action in Vietnam, and we lost 173 people, unfortunately, in Black Saturday in Victoria. The amount of unnecessary suicides due to injustices from environmental laws, I believe, is 3 times the size of the Black Saturday bushfires, and it's unrecognised. Being a bit of a student of history, I found a similar example of a nation ignoring injustices, oppression and the loss of innocent lives, and that was the nation of Israel back in 580 BC. It was given a warning by a prophet, and if they didn't get their act together, that their country would fall apart, and I believe that that lesson's for us as well. Our governments take our lands incrementally. Except for an occasional exception, they never give us just terms. Only very occasionally is someone very fortunate to get that. But when we lose it, we know that's theft. That's dishonest gain to the state. The oppression and extortion from our green groups, politicians and bureaucrats has caused disillusionment, depression, bankruptcies, family split-ups and many deaths. But thirdly, we must vote for those who we know will stand up for our rights, especially those prepared to take on the green religion at state and federal level, and that they will lead us to a more prosperous future based around Australian industries. Let's end the green religious control of our nation and get knowledgeable and upright independent thinkers in Parliament who have vision and will lead on the matter. Vote for people who will speak against the watermelon religion and expose how it subtly works to undermine the public interest. Vote for people who understand property rights and stand beside those people standing up for their rights. Vote for people who are capable of educating the public, not just be on the payroll when they get into Parliament. I believe it's time we draw a line in the sand and say no more to losing our freedoms. No more government-funded fraudulent science reports, no more bending to overzealous green laws that do nothing for the environment, and no more destroying Australian industries. You only have the rights others allow you to have. Please do your bit. Thank you.